This is just to see what they're doing.
Good evening. Welcome to the January 7th, 2020 meeting of Stillwater Planning Commission. It will be the process this evening to call for items on the agenda. Because we have a lot of citizens present tonight who want to speak, to make sure everyone gets a chance to be heard, here are the rules for tonight's hearing. Each speaker gets one turn at the podium. We do have a sign-up sheet at the podium, so at the present time, if you'd like to speak, I would appreciate very much if you would come forward and sign up. Please limit your speaking time to 3 minutes or less. Please try not to repeat what previous speakers have said. If you have something to add to the previous point, please do so. However, merely repeating the same thing over and over does not advance the dialogue and takes time away from other speakers. No clapping, cheering, or booing in response to a speaker's comments, please. Be respectful of other viewpoints. If a person's great outbursts can be removed from the hearing, and I hope to not do that at all. When you step to the podium, please state your name and address before beginning your comments. We are both making a written and video record of this proceeding. So, item 2, public hearings. Item 2A, CHC Management LLC preliminary plat SUB 19-23, requesting review and approval to create a new residential subdivision named Skyline East, Section 2, consisting of 132 residential lots and 2 outlots on property addressed as 1798 North Payne Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, Ryan Harkins, Community Development. This is a preliminary plat known as Skyline East. You can see here the area where the plat is proposed to be constructed. This is Jardot, Sunrise, Kraler, and Skyline. The middle school or the junior high is here. There's another school building on this block as well. This gives you an aerial view of the site. It includes this property inside the gold pattern, the gold polyline, as well as some area over here. You can see Jardot, again, Sunrise, and then the junior high.
So Jardot is considered to be a major street, an arterial street,
It is, yes.
and the street on the east there considered to be a residential street.
That's staff's understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the proposed preliminary plat. You can see Jardot over here, Sunrise, and then Payne extending into the proposed plat. At this point, staff is going to step aside and yield the podium to the applicant or their agent to explain their proposal to you.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Stephen Gose with Gose & Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue. Here on behalf of the applicant, CHC Management LLC, presenting this preliminary plat. It's a 132 lot subdivision on approximately 27 acres. There's the, it'll be developed in 2 phases, a north phase and a south phase. 3 points of access are proposed right now: Kraler, Moore, and Payne. The zoning of the properties, RSS, small lot, single family, which these lots meet that. We've gone through the review process with city staff. Current zoning, adjacent RSS, agriculture, industrial. Further to the south, on the south side of Sunrise, is a large lot, single family. The comprehensive plan calls for this to be low density. Low density in the comprehensive plan is 20 units an acre or less. Small lot single family is a gross density of 8 acres. This configuration's about 5 units per acre as it's laid out. a preliminary drainage study has been submitted and approved by city staff with this. We will do final drainage studies with the infrastructure plans. Their traffic impact analysis has been released to start. They're hoping to count next week if it doesn't rain. They had to wait till OSU and Stillwater Public Schools got back into session to do that. We did host a neighborhood meeting on December 11th prior to the map amendment that came to you all mid-December and got approved by City Council last night just to present this. We had 4 property owners show up at that meeting. And I'm here to answer any questions you all might have.
Any
Right now.
questions?
Yeah, yes. Would you point out the 3 points of access again? On
So the south is Payne Street off of Sunrise.
Right.
On the east off of Skyline, more stops at the back of these lots. So it will be extended in through here. And then Kraler at the northeast corner of the junior high will be extended.
So those 3 points of egress will empty onto Skyline and Sunrise?
Skyline, Kraler, and Sunrise, yes.
Okay, Kraler also.
And there was a preliminary plat that came through in 2015, 2016 for this that had a different layout. It had an extension of Kraler out to Jardeau. That what shows up on the city maps, it says RJ, that's not a public street. It's a 25-foot access easement between those 2 parcels that are right there where the 3 metal buildings are. And so that's, I don't know why there's a green city street sign there. It should be a blue private street sign. But the property owners of that were at the neighborhood meeting and did not want an extension of a public street through that property. So the current owners. So I'm assuming it's transferred. But those are the 3 points of access as proposed right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So have you pursued an access to Jardeau in terms of?
We have not. Our client doesn't control any of those 3. There's 3 parcels. There's one here where this industrial building is, and then this piece down, this 5 acres down here and we were going to wait, get the traffic study to figure out what public improvements it recommends so that we're not building roads that then have to be maintained forever by the city if there's improvements that are warranted in other places.
Any other questions? Can someone hand me the list of people that have signed up to speak? Thank you. So I will announce this list, and I want to apologize to start out with. My background is in engineering, not in the English language, and I am confident that I will not pronounce these names correctly. So I will endeavor to make it close enough where you'll know to come forward, and then if you'll pronounce it correctly and give your address, I'd appreciate that very much. Simon Ring. Simon, come on up here. I apologize.
Thank you. I apologize too. I was not aware we had a 3-minute time limit. I have prepared comments and I've attempted to edit them down to be as close to 3 minutes as possible. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. We've had some cold days this winter, and on a few occasions I've brought in some logs from my fireplace to start a fire in the fireplace. As anyone in this room knows, the first thing you do when building a fire is to check the flue. You have to make sure it's open so the fire can be properly vented, or you end up with a house full of smoke. Ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly a situation we're looking at here with the Skyline East development. The plat you're voting on tonight will add 132 houses to the neighborhood, and most of that traffic will need to get out, especially during peak hours in the morning and afternoon. Anyone who lives in this neighborhood will tell you that the fastest route to almost anywhere in town starts with Jardeau. If you want to get to campus, you take Jardeau. If you want to get to Walmart, you take Jardeau. If you want to go to Lowe's or Best Buy, you take Jardeau. If you want to get to Lakeview, you take Jardeau. Jardeau's the cornerstone for traffic in this neighborhood. And residents of Skyline East are going to find out what everyone else in this neighborhood already knows. You must have fast access to Jardeau. But this project hasn't even started yet, and the developers have failed not only the residents of the current neighborhood, but any future residents of Skyline East by not taking Jardeau into account. We just heard from Mr. Ghost, who said the developers simply have not considered it because they don't own the land. Instead, the developer has abided by the letter of the law alone. For development of this size, they're required to have 3 access points to existing roads. So where did they put these access points? Well, they put them in the worst possible locations. On this slide, you can see a map of Skyline East, the plat you're voting on tonight, superimposed on a map of the neighborhood. Blue circles indicate the access points, and red lines show where traffic is going to go to get anywhere in town. Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission, I submit to you that this is wholly inadequate to serve the needs of our neighborhood, as well as anyone who ends up living in Skyline East development. It's like building a fire with the flue shut, hoping the smoke, or in this case, the traffic, will just find its way out somehow. So what do we do? So let's look at this. First, Skyline Street. This street is terrible in the morning and afternoon. It can hardly handle the current volume of traffic at the exact time when people need it most. This Skyline East plan will make it much worse. Sunrise Street has no curbs and only one sidewalk. It's also too narrow. Finally, safety. The enormous increase in traffic would put lives at risk, real lives of real kids. We've also heard Kraler mentioned. That's true, but you'll notice Kraler goes right out into another subdivision. If you exit onto Kraler, you're essentially just postponing the problem because you have to go through neighborhood traffic to get to Lakeview. So what's my solution? I want to offer a solution. I don't want to just come here with a pitchfork and say no more development. My solution is this. Require any proposed plats, including the one under review tonight, to include 3 exits, 2 to Jardeau and 1 to Kraler. Additionally, the city should work on extending Grandview north to Lakeview. So why isn't this happening? Well, at the Planning Commission meeting on December 17th, Ghost Associates described Skyline East as property locked, which it is. The strip of land that separates Skyline East from Jardeau is not owned by the developers, as we just heard. Well, most of us here are homeowners, and before you sign in the dotted line, you get your home inspected for things like a fireplace with a flue that won't open. The only thing stopping the developers from securing access to Jardeau is time and money. If they don't own the property, get the property or work out a deal with the developers. They apparently don't think it's that big of an issue. And if that's not an option, if you cannot get access to Jardeau, sell this chunk of land that you should have never bought in the first place. Let's not settle for a Skyline East that clogs our streets, puts our kids at risk, and makes future homeowners grumble and complain to the city government. Let's set our sights high, do this project right, and make Skyline East a place that everyone can enjoy. Members of the Planning Commission, you work for us, the citizens of Stillwater, not developers. We trust you to guide the growth of our city in a responsible manner. Please vote accordingly and stop this irresponsible development now, and vote on it again when the developers have secured not 1 but 2 access points to Jardeau and none into our neighborhood streets. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. Leslie Meyer.
I'm Leslie Meyer. I live at 1102 North Payne on the corner of Payne and Linda Avenue. And I apologize if my comments seem random because they've been edited quickly as well. I first moved to my home in 1971 when I was a freshman in high school. In 2011, after being away for many years, my husband retired from teaching and we purchased our home from my family and moved back to Stillwater. There are many things I love about our neighborhood. Spacious lots and quiet streets are wonderful, but the most special thing is the families that are still living in the neighborhood that were here when I moved here in 1971. Some of them have been in their homes for more than 50 years. These Northeast neighborhoods are very well established and many families have lived here for decades. We love our community and we want to see the integrity of it preserved for our future generations, just like it has been for us. My primary concern is that you are able to see and understand the effects of the proposed development from the viewpoint or perspective of the neighbors that live in the surrounding area. And I've provided you with a little map that's called the density footprint map. I believe that there is a big difference in perspective as you move from looking at the zoning map for the city to a street map of the area to an aerial satellite map showing the rooftops of the homes to actually living in the area, walking and driving the streets of the neighborhoods. The last perspective is the one that we are trusting you to consider as you evaluate this proposal and make decisions. We are not against the development of the property. We are asking that it take place in a reasonable and responsible manner, which considers the needs of all parties concerned. When I say all parties, I am including the landowner and developer, the school district, bus drivers, the parents transporting students to Skyline and junior high, students from the area walking to school, emergency services such as fire and ambulance, the residents of existing surrounding neighborhoods, heavy equipment operators needing access to the building site, as well as the future residents that will live in this development. Skyline East is planned for the maximum density allowed by law under residential small lot zoning. There is, in effect, no transition between some of the largest residential lots in Stillwater along Payne Street and Linda Avenue between Skyline and Jardo, and the minimum lot size allowed for any single-family development in the city. All that separates these two extremes is one narrow street and one row of houses. Even the tree canopy, which exists as a buffer to the proposed area of development, will be gone in order to accommodate the maximum number of building lots. We believe that the proposed development will be a temporary transitional area of housing. It is likely that what is intended to be owner-occupied affordable housing will end up being purchased as rental properties. It seems the proposal is designed for maximum profit to the landowner and developer. I have no problem with them making money, but is it fair to impose the consequences of that on the existing residents and schools in the area? Could they profit equally by building larger, nicer homes on larger lots that would be attractive to long-term residents? Is there a happy medium that would be profitable for the developer and beneficial to the surrounding area? That's my edited comments, and I appreciate you listening to my thoughts. Thank you.
Rick Randolph? Okay, thank you. Dave Meyer?
Good evening. My name is Dave Meyer. I live at 1102 North Payne Street and Linda Avenue. I want to bring Benjamin Street area to your attention because Skyline East opens at the northwest corner of Crayler, which leads to Benjamin Street. In my opinion, and based on personal experience, I don't think the Crayler Street exit will be used much at all, especially after one tries to get to Lakeview a couple of times. The residents will learn it is not the path of least resistance and look for another course. The residents of Skyline East will not use the exit at Moore Street much either. This is directly across from the junior high, and they will not contend with a congested street. Once again, this is not the path of least resistance. Sunrise at Skyline and at Jardo is congested due to the school zone as well. So the path of least resistance will become the Payne Street exit, crossing Sunrise to Linda to access Jardo to the east. This brings a majority of the traffic from Skyline East through one of the oldest, most established and peaceful neighborhoods in Stillwater. As I understand, the developer purchased the land that was landlocked. This is unfortunate for the developer. If not for this, all traffic could be directed to Jardo, as has already been stated. I suggest the developer look into purchasing the land that will allow for Brook Street as an exit to Jardo. It is currently for sale for approximately 4 to 6 acres. And it was already mentioned about RJ. In 2015, it showed an access to RJ. If those two exits were to Jardo, all the traffic in the school zone on Payne Street would virtually disappear. There would not be the need for proposed Moore and Payne Street exits. People will take, if made available, the path of least resistance to Jardo. This is about the change of Skyline East allowed to proceed as planned. In the Stillwater Comprehensive Community Development Plan on page 3-3 under the section entitled neighborhood enhancement. It states in the second paragraph, and I quote, "A key component to this plan is enhancing and maintaining the viability of existing neighborhoods." How does a development with a density of 8 units per acre being proposed just feet away from a neighborhood with 1 house per acre enhance and maintain the viability and integrity of our neighborhood? In the document entitled Report to Stillwater Planning Commission issued by the Development Services Department of Stillwater, Oklahoma, it states twice under findings and applicable city plans and policies that the comprehensive plan recommends low-density housing for the proposed area. The plan defines low density as all single-family and two-family residential uses that involve a gross density of 4 dwelling units or less per acre. Therefore, I am respectfully asking the Planning Commission to find that the preliminary plat is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and that you not recommend that the City Council approve the preliminary plat. If we're not going to adhere to the comprehensive development plan for the City of Stillwater, why have one? Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Moore?
Mark Moore, 318A South Knobloch Street. I'm also superintendent of Stillwater Public Schools. I'm not here to for or against the project, but I did have, as my role as superintendent, and accompanying board members have had several citizens contact us and ask for comments on what thoughts were from the school district and how it may impact us. So what I've done is given you some notes here, and I'll try to highlight those quickly, and then also I'll be available for resource if you have future questions, since this is so closely connected to our 2 sites of Stillwater Junior High and Skyline Elementary. In just my thoughts on its impact or its relationship or coordination with Skyline Elementary, what we have at the school district is a neighborhood school concept. We want neighborhoods around our school. We think it makes them more viable. People flow to and out to the playgrounds, makes it easier to come in. So this enhances that concept. Currently, we are experiencing declining enrollment at Skyline Elementary, as opposed to the west side of town and the north side of town. So we've actually had to redistrict students into that part in our most recent redistricting. This neighborhood is less than 1.5 miles within our transportation zone, so it's a neighborhood that we would not have to provide transportation services to. As far as how it would impact drop-off of our students, currently at Skyline, we will have a large number of parents dropping off students in the morning and then picking up in the afternoon. Right now, in the morning, we will have our queue extends all the way to Skyline and Sunrise intersection, and that will be estimated. It flows up and depends on how fast the parents come in, but it will last a 15 to 20 minute period in the mornings. In the afternoon, what we do, we have exactly a queue, and it tails off to the east, and it will queue all the way to Sunrise and Skyline, and then it also tails off to the west in the intersection of Skyline and Manning. We currently have walkers who will come out of the school in the afternoon. They will walk along the sidewalk and they will cross Skyline going east. So we have about 50 students now who will cross that intersection in the afternoon. We think also, we plan in our planning of students coming in, we think an addition of about 132 adds about 30 to 35 students. So that will increase from 50 to about 30 that will walk across that intersection if this is approved. As for the impact of the relationship to the Stillwater Junior High, currently in the morning, we will have a shorter queue that goes on to Skyline. It'll range, just depends on the timing, from 0 to 10, but generally, the parents drop off rather quickly in the morning. In the afternoon, we will have a queue, and it has 2 tails. It will extend north up along Crayler, and it will go all the way to the Stillwater Junior High track. And then the queue can also, when the second half of the queue extends to the south, it will extend sometimes down to Sunrise and Skyline intersection. And those usually last from about 15 to 20 minutes. As far as buses coming into that site, we have 20 morning routes that will come in to the junior high. We have 18 afternoon routes. It's a little bit less because we have students who participate in after-school athletics. The buses coming into the junior high are paired with the high school. So a lot of times either they will drop off at the high school first and then come to the junior high, or they will come to the junior high first and drop off, or vice versa. So what we have is our buses coming into that site at the junior high, approximately 50%. It's give or take depending on the bus driver, but they will come in from Crayler and they will come in from Skyline. So these are the items that, as they started looking at this development and how some of the facts of how it's related to the schools, that came to my mind, and I'll just share those with you. So thank you
very much. Lawrence, Ray?
My name is Lawrence Roy, and I live at 1819 Linda. I've been in this residence probably as long as most people that's here today. I agree with the comments that's been made before me. I cannot imagine that the city would ever approve a structure or presenting a building structure with no more access and inroads into the structure other than the school routes and into Linda, which is not a dead end, but you have to turn and go someplace else. And those appear to be the main entrance into this large of a complex. So I hope that you look at it very seriously. I am disappointed that somebody would plan a structure in an area like this, of this size, and not have good access and good departure from the area itself. So with these comments and comments that's been made before me, I agree with most everything that's been said, and I think that for the residents of Stillwater in that area, that this is just a no-no. Thank you.
Thank you. Marvin Smith?
I'm Marvin Smith, 1324 North Payne Street, and I, like many others, I've lived there since 1975. It's a good place to live. I'd like not to see it change. But the thing that I came here for was not to consider things that already have been discussed, but when we look at a large complex, it's not real large, but it's large enough. In this day and age, there's a high potential there'd be a pedophile among the group, and I think with pedophiles, as often as they come around anymore, that it's not a good place for a complex to be built at that high density, and it shouldn't be near a school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lacey Corbett?
I did not really prepare anything, so I'm just have some talking points. I'm Lacey Corbett. I live at 1623 North Skyline. I'm right on the, kind of in the corner of Sunset and Skyline, directly across the street from the park. With that said, this is going to directly affect me and my home. The school drainage ditch across the street at the park, every time it rains, it fills up probably a good 2 foot of water that goes underneath the street and goes in between my home and drains off into my backyard area. And during not even heavy rains, but that back there gets about 3 foot deep in water, which concerns me. I mean, I have my backyard, I have a retaining wall for my home. I am the only home that actually has the retaining wall. The other homes beside me, their backyards, they need the retaining wall. Their backyards go pretty hilled down. Another point I'd like to make I own a shelter insurance agency here in town. And with that said, I would say about 75% of our accidents that I file on a monthly basis are at schools during pickup and drop-off, as well as Walmart. But this is going to increase those accidents. And with how many children you see going from the schools walking to their homes on a daily basis, my thoughts are, if these are rental homes, are these people in these rental homes going to really pay attention to our children in our community? Something else, my neighbor, his yard he's had to repair a sinkhole from that drainage ditch. I imagine I'll eventually have to as well. And then, I know that everybody keeps talking about the traffic and everything. I want to point out as well that when the school has games, they have their volleyball games there, they have all kinds of other games that go on. And during that time, when they have those games, the entire street of Skyline, where the park is all the way to the school, it is lined up completely with cars. Like there's only one way in and one way out. Sometimes I even get blocked into my driveway. So that could be not good. And then we also have at the park over there, they have, I think it's like the YMCA, they have all the children's activities. Like we have t-ball games out there, they have football out there. I mean, it's very, very, very busy out there, which could all, having no more access to in and out, could really affect all that. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Bob Barker?
Not on this item.
Matthew
Wyckoff.
Wyckoff.
Yes. So Matthew Wyckoff, I'm at 1824 East Sunrise. That is the northwest corner of Payne and Sunrise. Payne and Sunrise. So I'm the house that everybody would be driving by to get out to Sunrise to get to Jardo. Okay. I know that Grandview is under development to be actually extended out to Lakeview, but as you saw on the maps, that's still going through another neighborhood to even get out to there. My main concern is threefold. First of all, as others have noticed, drainage. There are 2 lagoons on the map that are planned to put that in, but the creek runs directly north of my house, and my neighbor to the east is where the pond currently is. So for them to go in, they're going to go in and, of course, take out all the trees. The plan is to put a 4-foot ditch into that area that would then have to be maintained by the homeowners. Now, we already know that the city has actually ticketed homeowners for not keeping easements and areas clean. So what happens if that ditch gets clogged? Or is not done right? That will push water directly off onto everybody south of it. In those easements north of me is where all the utilities are, the electric, the cable, everything is run underground in that easement. So if it is not done well, then that water will have additional impact on the city utilities over time. The other aspect is currently right now we do not have good water pressure in the neighborhood. And up on the north end, I've heard that sewage has problems backing up, this type of thing. So I know that they have to upgrade the systems to take care of the impact that the new development would have. But we don't want to just go back to the status quo at this point. We need to improve, not just meet the minimum standards. So I think that also needs to be looked at. And then, of course, traffic. Traffic, everybody's mentioned traffic. The traffic I'm talking about is how are they going to get the equipment in? Okay, because the city just paid to rebuild Sunrise after the track was built at the junior high. And it was a complete mess. They had to dig down 4 feet. They had to completely rebuild the entire bed of the road to even be able to put a road in. which is why it's too narrow and doesn't have curbs, because they ran out of money to do it. But currently, they either have to come in on Sunrise, that recently rebuilt street, or they have to come in on Benjamin and come down through crossing Grandview to get into the northwest corner of the property, which is where they're wanting to come in. So I'm concerned about the damage that would be done to the city streets and how they would actually have to repair all that road again. So, I mean, you're looking at a lot of aspects, as you've heard from a lot of people here, that really would not only impact our way of life during construction, but after. Plus, a lot of these systems that are put in, we wouldn't even know how much it would affect our water and sewage until the houses are built, complete, and done, and filled. So we really need to be on our toes on that, so that we can actually make sure that they're actually going to have systems that would handle that. The other aspect is when they rebuilt Sunrise, they loaded and unloaded the heavy equipment on the existing roads, not the roads they were tearing up to replace. So they damaged Payne, north and south of Sunrise, to get the equipment loaded and offloaded on a city street that hasn't been touched since the road repair was done. And I really don't want that to happen again. So again, certain things should be put into the whatever agreement is made with the developer to not only maintain the status quo, but to improve over what is the status quo, because we're not where we really should be for the neighborhood anyway, as far as the streets and utilities go. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to address any items before I close the public hearing?
Yeah, I tried to take some notes going through there. I can address a few of them. As far as access, one thing that is planned, and Mr. Wyckoff alluded to it, Grandview north of Crayler to Lakeview. This developer's actually party to a development going on over there that will extend that road. Those plans are in for approval to the city. The right-of-way has been obtained from the property owner to the east. That's why the road never got built. The east half of Grandview, we didn't have the right-of-way until like 2 weeks ago. The city didn't. So our developer and us worked with that property owner to get that. So we're currently talking to the city about what it's going to take to get that built. And additionally, on the construction access, the city now has hopefully a better policy of addressing construction routes to new projects, doing an analysis and watching any damage that's done to those streets, and trying to hold developers responsible for damage and making sure they're not going down streets that weren't built for construction traffic. So the transportation department's helping with that. With regard to these being rentals or whatever, high density, low income, these are trying to be built as workforce housing, the $190,000 range, so that there's places for the teachers, the firefighters, whoever wants to live there. They're great. I mean, we heard from the school district and other people, it's close to the school. So 30 or 40 kids that can walk to school instead of having to ride the bus. The quality homes is going to be similar to what's being built over on Swim. Right now there's a house that this developer's building. As far as I know, there's been no concerns with poor construction, trash blowing around, things like that. With regard to rentals, nobody can stop rentals in a neighborhood. Stillwater's percentage is like a 60-40 split, owner-occupied rentals, and that's a national trend. The national trend is actually creeping up, but there's nothing we can do. Hopefully these incentive programs that the city's rolling out for first-time home buyers within the city limits, some of that can help make these owner-occupied, longer-term residents. The discussion about the comprehensive plan, my reading of the comprehensive plan, low density is 20 units an acre, which seems really high to me. This, again, is about 5 units an acre based on the current layout. The zoning allows up to 8. I don't know how you can fit that. I've tried to engineer it. It just doesn't work. It's more like 6 units an acre. The drainage on the southwest side, we are going to reshape that swale, put in detention ponds. With regard to elevation change from those current houses on the north side of Sunrise to that ditch we're putting, the closest is 5 feet, most of it's 8 feet. The ground does slope away from there. This ditch will be constructed on the other side of some existing easements back there to convey that water. Those are the notes I have. Are there any questions you all have based on what you heard from the neighbors?
What I heard and what my major concern before tonight in reading the staff report and looking at this is there's no connection to Jardot. What you have told me is you've not done a traffic study yet. So why should I not table this item till the traffic study's finished?
That's a decision that's a decision you all have to make. The traffic impact analysis in the code's not required until the final plating stage, so that's where we're at. Now, we've talked about it. 130 lots is about it's 1 trip per house in the peak hour. So 3, you look at the distribution, it's going to be a car a minute, added to what's going on, but it's infill development. We've got infrastructure there, we've got roads there, we've got schools there. We're not going a mile out to build and increase car traffic to the schools. Now, I know cars aren't everything. Like Dr. Moore said, 30 or 40 students out of the 100, so.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
And hopefully Grandview helps getting that open. Will alleviate some of that on the west, but I can understand access to Jardot. I don't think cars, like some people said, are going to go all the way down Payne to Linda and out, because you can get from Payne to Sunrise and go east a whole lot quicker to get to Jardot. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll close the public hearing. Planning Commission discussion. I can tell you what my position is. Yes, a traffic study is not required to the final plat. However, this, I have lots of questions about this, lots of public comments about this, and the impact of that traffic study and the connections to Jardot is very important in terms of public safety, and my perception is whether there's a public safety problem or not, and therefore I want to table this item till the traffic study is completed.
Yes, I agree with that. I think there's going to be a major impact on the neighborhood due to the development. I think there's been a lot of comments to that effect. I lived in that part of the town for several years, so I understand that. And I think the fact there are 2 schools in the area should be even more of a concern because of the greater traffic due to safety. So I agree. I think we need to see a traffic study before we can move forward.
Any other Planning Commission comments? Do I hear a motion?
Set a date. What do you want? 30 days, 60 days? What do you want?
Motion to table.
You gotta give a
We have
date.
to table a certain date. Does
Special
the
date, specific
applicant
date.
have a recommendation on when the traffic study will be done? So you,
1 month.
okay.
So that's gonna be what? 1 second. I don't have a calendar.
To the first meeting in February?
First meeting in February is gonna be.
February 4th? Do you want to make your motion to table until February 4th?
Motion to table until February 4th.
And I second that motion.
Let's take a vote. The motion passes 4-0. Item 2B, Dunbar Dispensary Specific Use Permit SUP 19-32, requesting review and approval of specific use permit to establish a medical marijuana dispensary on property addressed at 210 North York Street in T5 zoning district.
It's Dubway Dispensary. It's on Hope Street.
Dubway Dispensary on Hoke Street.
You might wanna give a few minutes and let people leave.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break so people can leave? And then we'll go to item 2B.
And then you have the two people that said they weren't gonna talk on the previous topic, so I don't know if this is the one they want, but we might ask if this is the one that they want. I don't know. Some of the residents in the area. This, these areas. Horses. Remember this came up in the 15th, we were good, remember? We had horses and things like that. It's just, they're still living. Essentially, it's loud. Well, I remember that. I remember that discussion. It was a long discussion, but it was a city street. It doesn't look like that. It's not really this one. We fought for that. We had a lot of movements 3 years ago on the city. And now all of a sudden it shouldn't have a green sign. It's like, what? So is the city, I mean, it's a good question to the city. Is just, is it or is it not? Is it a city street or not? Right? I mean, that's the easy question. It is a city street. I guarantee it's a city street. It's just an unpaved, non-advanced. There it is.
So why don't you start your discussion on item 2B?
To be or not to be.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a SUP application for a medical marijuana dispensary. The address is 210 North Hoke. You can see on the area map, the hatched lot is the subject property. You can see Hoke Street, Matthews, Main, and Miller are the adjacent streets. You can see Husband farther to the west as well. This aerial indicates the subject property as well in the green rectangle. North would be to the right of the photograph. So right in here is the subject property that we're looking at. You can see one building here, a structure in the back, and then parking in the front. This is the site plan of the proposed dispensary on the lot it sits on, and at this point in time, staff is going to yield the floor to the applicant and or their agent to further explain their request.
Rambunctious crowd.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923 South Lowry, here representing the developer tonight. This dispensary is just a little bit different since it's located in the T5 form-based code zone. It's still allowed use with the SUP, though. It does not trigger any public improvements since it's going into an existing commercial building, and they're not planning any outside improvements to the building. There are 2 buildings, as Ryan pointed out, that's located on the property. The commercial building is up towards the street, and then there's a small, there we go, residential, I think it's probably an apartment type building, and that is not part of this development. It will continue to act as an apartment building. Do you have any questions for me or the owner?
So what is adjacent to this property? Here's my challenge in my mind, so you can address my challenge.
Okay.
T5, yes, it was acceptable including T5 because T5 has multi-story buildings where we have commercial on the first floor, but that is not this case. To me, this is a residential area, hasn't developed into a T5 area, and therefore I have some challenges with doing this permit.
Okay. So this building was previously a salon, so it's been a commercial building. To the south, this actually is a property that's owned by the same owner, and so but all of these buildings have access and use of this parking lot that's along the south side. To the across the street, this is it's a nice, I wouldn't even call it a strip center, but it's a commercial building that I believe has 2 spaces, retail spaces, and a parking lot that goes, the parking lot goes all the way out to this street. Well, I don't think it was these 2 buildings, but just on the other side of that, those are 2 buildings that have been recently demolished since they were dilapidated buildings. And so this area is kind of in transition, but since this here, this property on the corner is commercial, it really lends itself to continue the commercial in this area.
Thank you. Any other questions from the planning commissioners?
Thank you.
Let me open up the public hearing. And does anyone want to speak on this item? You do not have to have signed up. Give your name and address.
Rick Randolph, 214 Hoke. We're on the north property of this, north side of this property. It is residential, as you said. There's children of the age of 10 and under in the area, local. It looks like you've actually done some really good, the street and everything's, the street itself has been redone, making it a nicer area. And there's also been one, I think at one time it was an apartment complex that was demolished due to probably lack of a lot of things, mainly people taking care of things. My main concern is the number one being a possible increase for maybe, who knows what the time would be on crime. Curious about security, what their plans would be security-wise after hours, not so much during hours, but after hours. It is a facility that at one time was probably a house, and I don't know what kind of security they might be trying to do, since this is new. This is a new industry in Oklahoma City. They've had a few problems with crime, people coming outside, being robbed on their way back to their cars. So it's more concern to me as far as what the securities would be, and also for the families that live in the area. And that's basically all my comments.
Thank you very much. Anybody else here to speak on this particular item? Not seeing anyone? Does the applicant want to say anything, or?
I can just address some of the questions that were just brought up. They plan on starting business hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. To start with and see how that works. And then for security, they will have cameras placed around.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion or motion?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is the issue is how commercially is commercial, right? I mean, in one sense, I mean, it had been I remember when they brought in that they were going to make it a hair salon, and it was been a hair salon in there, and they put the parking lot there and all that. So this is another use of that commercial property already set up for commercial, and so, especially given right there on Miller, it's kind of a connector street, I would say, more than a residential street per se. It's a way to get from Duck over to Main, and with the liquor store on the corner and things of that sort. So I'm amenable to this special use.
Well, after hearing the discussion, I'm not opposed to this use, so. Do I hear a motion?
Okay, one second, I gotta get my sheet down. I move that we accept findings and recommend City Council approve proposed specific use permit as presented. Maybe in a second. Or a second.
I second that motion.
I'll call for the vote. The motion passes 4-0. Item 2C, Simply Green Course, specific use permit, requesting review and approval, specific use permit to establish a medical marijuana grow facility at property address at 2000 East RJ Avenue in the Light Industrial District.
We know that street. He's gonna go quiet him down. Go beat him up.
Okay.
So you can do your presentation.
That's fine. Just waiting for city attorney to get back in the room. So this is an SUP request for a medical marijuana grow facility on RJ. You may remember this area may look familiar from one of the previous subdivisions we looked at that we tabled tonight. The area in question is right here in the hatched pattern. Jardot is here. The red line represents the municipal boundary, just as an FYI. You can see Skyline in the junior high. RJ is a private street. This is the aerial looking to the south. You can actually to the from Jardot to the west. North, so north would be to the right. The area in green is the subject property, and this is their proposed site plan. And at this point in time, staff will step aside and yield the floor to the agent and their applicant.
I had a quick question about RJ, because I was here on 15, and I thought in 15 we talked about it that it was a city street, but you're now saying it is not a city street.
Our understanding is it's a private street, but there may be information that staff now does not know from that point in time.
All right, thank you.
Is the applicant here? Not seeing an applicant, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to get up and speak?
Evening again. Lacey Corbett again. This building is directly in my backyard. I can see the building from my backyard, which basically tells you how close this is to the two schools, which personally I feel like is completely inappropriate to have this that close to children. You would think there would be bigger laws keeping things like this from our children. But anyhow, my ramblings. that grows concern for safety for these children. Like a lot of these, I don't want to be judgmental, but let's just say it grows a safety concern for the children at the schools, walking, the games in the evenings. Are people going to be trying to break into this building? Are these people going to have scary dogs in this building? What if some dogs got out and hurt one of the children walking? I mean, those are really my only concerns for this, is just the safety of our neighborhood and all the kids that are that close to the school. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Anybody else that would like to speak about this particular item?
Brian Price, 1111 North Payne Street. Just want to urge the Planning Commission and the city to investigate this private street, local street, and the information there, and work with this particular owner of this address to take in consideration what was just discussed earlier tonight and the traffic that's going to be going through there, and be able to be open to making that a city street and allowing access to Jardo. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else like to speak on this particular item? We'll close the public hearing.
So at this point in time, the findings that we can share with you on this application are as follows. Medical marijuana facilities such as grow facilities like this are allowed under Oklahoma state law. The applicant has been issued a license to operate a grow facility. The Land Development Code allows grow facilities with a SUP in the IL zoning district. They have sufficient parking. As an FYI, grow facilities and dispensaries, when they put their application into the state, go through a review process. This is a small step in that process. So, for example, dispensaries have to be located 1,000 feet from a public or private school, from any door of that type of facility. So this is far away from, enough away in the state's eyes from any type of facility like that. With that, in terms of alternatives, you can accept the findings and recommend approval as presented. You can find the request is not appropriate and recommend denial, or you can table the item to a particular date later if you have additional information that you think is needed in the discussion. Questions staff can answer.
I don't have any questions, staff. Planning Commission discussion?
I think, we have this issue with the development that's going on right in this area. And then one of the issues was to talk about alternatives, in terms of access, things of this sort and all that. So I guess my concern about allowing a grow facility to go in right there is that complexifies the discussion that we've just tabled for 1 month in terms of, looking at what's going on in that regard. So while I'm generally amenable to these types of facilities and things of that sort, I'm kind of in some ways loath to let this go in right now, and then in a month we work out we work out the traffic, and we look at RJ as a possible access point. And now we've got a grow facility right on the corner of the access into the subdivision that we're putting all this effort in. So that's my only concern per se in this regard right now. So, or at least that is a concern. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, referring back, Commissioner Rickleman, to the item that was tabled, the engineer for the applicant noted that in their discussion with the property owner of this location, they were not amenable to any kind of access easement or extension of streets, just as a point for the record. So.
Well, I would really like to hear the developer address some of the concerns about safety So until I hear those, I don't know how amenable I would be to approving this at this time.
I wholly agree with that statement. I'm in favor of either tabling this or denying it. What is the pleasure of the Planning Commission?
Motion to deny?
It'd be my recommendation, based on what I hear you guys saying, is that you vote to table this to a date certain at this point. If you vote to deny it, you're going to have to provide very specific and direct reason as to why it's denied. And I think what you're saying, Mike, is that you need more information. So tabling it might be the better option for you.
May I withdraw my motion to deny?
You may withdraw your motion. Do you have another motion?
I withdraw my motion to deny. I move to table. To a specific date, 30 days from
2/18. You want to do 2/18?
Why don't we do the second meeting in
February
February,
18th.
and then we'll have the first meeting.
February 18.
Move to table to February 18th to provide sufficient time to.
Is there a second to that?
I second that motion.
Call for the vote. Motion passes 4-0, so it's just tabled to the second meeting in February. Item 2D, RSR OKC North LLC, Crafton Toll and Associates, preliminary plat. Requesting review approval of preliminary plat creating 182 residential lots and 4 outlots at project currently located at 1998 West 32nd Avenue. It's currently zoned residential, single family, and agriculture.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this item was deferred to this date to deal with some additional discussion. The applicant has asked for a continuance of 30 days to the February 4th meeting in order to have additional time to respond to staff's comments. They were unable to take care of those items over the holiday period, so they are a little unprepared at this point and would like to defer in order to have proper time to respond to staff's issues and concerns. I'll say that up front. Just as a matter of a note, again, 26th and Western and 32nd and Western, the area hatched is the area in question. It actually extends a little bit farther over toward the creek. This is, however, the main primary development area in question. This is the proposed site plan for the preliminary plat. You'll notice the common area over to the right of the screen. This common area is all floodplain. You can see the FEMA floodway boundary. There's a detention pond as well as the proposed lot layout. Questions staff can answer at this point in time?
I don't have any questions.
My only question is more general. Some of the unresolved issues that hadn't been done by this point were things such as connecting into sewers and drainage. I mean, drainage I know can take a while and things like that. I mean, are those things sufficient to hold up, or can preliminary plats continue even though there's no demonstration of how to connect to sewer? Is that acceptable to do a preliminary plat if all other things were handled?
It would be a matter of they would have to potentially demonstrate in their improvement plans that they would submit roughly after this would be approved at a minimum. But again, the sewer and some of the other issues are things they're trying to work through.
Right, exactly.
And they would rather have, in their mind, have that settled before they bring it back to you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Does anybody in the audience
Thank
want
you.
to speak on this item? I will open up the public hearing at this particular time. Anyone who wants to speak on this item? Realizing that
I don't know who I'm talking to, but okay.
you'll have an opportunity when we have it on the agenda
Well,
in the future to have it, but you're welcome to speak now.
I'm on your list.
All right.
I'm Bob.
I have no
Oh.
problem with you speaking whether you're on my list or not.
Oh, okay. My name is Bob Barker, and I live directly south across the road from this proposed development. I have the goats, a chain link fence, and about 600 feet from the corner of the intersection of 32nd and Western on the south side of that street is my 20-acre property. It's about 600 feet east to west, and then it runs about an eighth of a mile down Western. Mine, I live at 2121. I also own the house on the corner, which is, the address is 3201 Southwestern. And my grandson lives in that house. I don't really know how much has been done. It sounds like there's still some things that the developer has to do. Number one, I'm not against this, but I do have some questions specifically about drainage. Because if you look at the plat, I don't have a map here. Well, I guess I do. Here is a common area. This is in the city limits on the north side of the road. I live where the red spot is, from the corner of 32nd and Western all the way almost to where the street of this subdivision proposed to come out. And the elevation, I don't know if any of you have been out there, it's a little bit higher than where I live. When it rains, a 2-inch rain out there, and this is all dirt right now, this whole area. There is construction going on with the booster station that the city is involved in putting in out there. But when it rains 2 inches, it floods across 32nd Street right onto my property. And I can take you and show you anytime you want to the dirt that has been washed away from pecan trees that I have there. I like my pecan trees, but the roots, the dirt is washed away from the roots. My main concern is drainage. I know that there's a proposed drainage pond or lagoon to the, I believe it's to the northeast in this sort of common area up here. I guess that's what this is. But the slope is towards me and a little bit this direction. Right now, this all being dirt, when it becomes all concrete, water's not going to soak in too easily. So I'd like to know, have some idea of what the drainage system is going to be out there. There is no current sewer. You just talked about that. There's nothing out there. So the other point I'm concerned about is I don't think that common area on the south there is going to be sufficient to stop water coming from the yards of those houses just to the north of it there. I also want to know about the traffic impact. Have you ever been out there? 32nd Street is a superhighway. Western is a superhighway. That four-way stop on 32nd and Western is a dangerous place. I've had one person killed in the front yard of my corner house. This has been a few years ago. But I think that it's short-sightedness if there is not something understood about the traffic impact that that's going to have, because the only access I see in or out is right there on 32nd Street. And that's crazy. And the other thing that I would like to say, even right now, to the city folks here, would you please ask the city to provide a dumpster for those people that are out there working right now? My chain link fence catches all that trash that comes from that construction site right up against my chain link fence or my wooden fence, and nobody comes across the road and picks it up. It's obviously from the construction. So when this subdivision begins, there's going to be a lot of trash, and nobody takes care of it. I'm in the county, so, I have to go out there and pick it up. And right now, I'm just taking it back across the road and putting it on inside their little blue fence because it's not my trash. So I would like for the city to provide some way to handle this or manage it. It's been happening for a long time because there was some other kind of water line put in out there, and I picked up trash and put it in my dumpster. And I do have city trash pickup, but those would be my comments. And I'd like to know a lot more about whoever's going to build this and get some information from them. And I know you don't know what it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person like to comment on this particular item tonight? I will close the public hearing. We've already heard that the applicant would like to table this to the first meeting in February. We've already got a major item first meeting in February. My recommendation is to table it to the second meeting in February.
Yeah. I move that we table this request until the February 18th meeting.
I second that.
Call for the vote. It passes 4-0. Item 3, regular meetings summary of December 17th, 2019.
Move to accept.
Second.
Call for the vote. The next Planning Commission meeting is January 21st, 2020. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.